Welcome to Ask Trent, everybody. So today is really focused on sharing some amazing things that happened this summer around the Parkinson's community and helping you better understand how to optimize how you play with the BrainSpeed Ball, and either for yourself if you have Parkinson's, or for a loved one, or if you're a movement pro and you have clients that you're working with to help you as well. So couple of things we're going to cover today is going through the collaboration and impact for the Parkinson's community that happened this past July. I want to help you optimize the BrainSpeed Ball for Parkinson's. I want you to understand the importance of eye exercise. I think at the core of everything that we're going to go through today and everything that I've been sharing over the last few years, I want to really underline the importance of eye exercise, because that's where we see a lot of huge changes happen. And so also the most important thing is keeping it fun, because especially with Parkinson's, it can be a very serious topic and has a lot of very serious side effects and affect quality of life, but still finding ways to keep it fun is really important. And of course, we'll have time at the end for some Q&A, which is going to be a great way for you to ask questions, either on how you're playing with the game, how you're helping someone else play with the game, or if you're brand new and you're not sure what to do. So let's start with this past July. So backing up to just over a year ago, I had this idea where, what if we brought together a group of really inspiring, motivated movement professionals, and spend a year together and have a culmination of that year be helping the Parkinson's community have a fun and easy way to improve quality of life, a fun and easy way to create interaction with their loved ones, with their family. And this is really what was incredible, is that year led to collaboration that I didn't expect. So in the end, we were able to work with the Take Root Dance Company. They have a Parkinson's Expo that they put on for a while now. And as the group of neuro leaders were coming together and pulling their ideas for how they were going to show up for this community, up pops the Parkinson's Expo. And I thought, this would be such a beautiful collaboration, because here you have this community that is already used to being together. They're used to being led through different experiences. And if we could jump in and provide a new way and a new lens for them, it'd be really wonderful. So I was able to talk to Allie Warner, who is the head of Take Root, and it was an easy yes for her. It was an easy yes for me in the group. And so what started off being something that I knew would be impactful and incredible turned into this event that I don't think anybody will ever soon forget. And I know there's some of the neuro leaders that are on the call today. And so later on, when we open up the lines and we start talking, if you want to jump in and share your experience and maybe some aha moments that have happened since this past July for you, and helping people with Parkinson's, or just things that happened for you during the event, that'd be a great time to share that. The leaders were charged with several things, but four of the key things that I really wanted to challenge them with was to design something that was fun and educational. So everybody showing up to the expo would have this experience that would not only help them, but feel really exciting to do and open up the world to some new possibilities. I want them to be able to teach the participants how to continue to play the game at home. It's awesome to have this event. It's awesome to have this collaboration with everybody, so that there's a space for those with Parkinson's and their loved ones to learn something new. But what happens when the event's over? What happens when they go back home and they're living their daily lives? So it was important to me that was a part of the experience. And so I made sure that everybody coming to the event was able to take home a BrainSpeed Ball, and the neuro leaders then made sure that they knew how to play on their own when they got home. It was also important to me that they were able to respond to the needs of the room to keep everyone included. When you look at the community that showed up to this event, you have all levels and abilities. You have people that maybe when you looked at them, you wouldn't think or know that they had anything going on. There wasn't any signs of Parkinson's necessarily. And then you have people that are in wheelchairs with limited speech. And so being able to create a space where everyone is included is challenging, but a very important part of this process, so that you don't have to have a certain ability to play the game. The game can be modified for all abilities. And I think that the leaders showed up in a really powerful way to demonstrate that. And the other thing is that, while this is a simple and fun game of catch that we play, throwing the ball back and forth, there's this very powerful relationship between eye exercise and movement quality. And so there's moments where that element is sprinkled in during the event. So in the end, within an hour's time, the leaders were able to take everyone in the room through an experience that was modified for their abilities, targeted to helping them with things like balance, with coordination, with gait improvement. And I think one of the exciting things that I always love to do that showed up real big time in this event was having before and after measurements. And I'm a big proponent of that because as a movement professional, I want to see what's happening in a before and after situation. Am I affecting change? Is there something that's actually happening that we can measure? And we know that eye exercise improves movement quality, but can we have it show up in real time and measure it? And then I want people that are participating in the games to be able to express what they notice and what's changing for them. And so this is an important aspect where you go, okay, maybe it's as simple as just taking a little walk if you're able. Maybe it's some simple arm circles. Maybe it's some head range of motion side to side, then playing the game, and then coming back and retesting that before and after element. And that's really where that relationship between eye exercise and movement quality can be felt. Because, in our brains, we can think about, oh, that's important. But what does that feel like? What's it feel like when, the game is fun? What's it feel like when I'm changing by doing an eye exercise? What's that sensation like? We can learn about the knowledge of it. We can study it. We can look at research, but what does that feel like in your body? And so it's a task for the neuro leaders to help the people participating to tune in and share what they're noticing. And I have to say, that's probably one of my favorite questions to ask everybody is, what are you noticing? Because when you start considering what you're noticing, then we start to talk about improving your awareness. And we know that, we know that the brain is plastic. We know that to affect any change, we have to have some awareness present. And so what's incredible is that these people showed up to play a fun game, and that's what they did. But what was packed in that fun game is so many elements that are, whether they learned about them or not, they're happening, they're real. And for me to be a part of this community in the space, in the capacity that I am, is such an honor, because going back probably 20 years, when I first started helping people with Parkinson's, someone walked into the studio and they're like, yeah, I would like to see if this will help me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it will, but you're my first person. We got to start someplace. And then that turned into sharing the information with my team and having the team try different things and explore, and having the team share the information back to me. And then having these educational outreach programs where we're seeing so many amazing things happen that, the proof is in the pudding. And so, I've always known from my personal experience that if we can find a way in, if we can find a way to open a door, or find a way to unlock a new possibility or new potential, that we can kind of run with it. And I think it's been, for me, my willingness to explore and to problem solve, and then watching the neuro leaders show up this past July with their willingness to take a risk and explore and to stand up in front of a group that they've never met before and do something they've never done before. And I think that's really, when I look at, how do we move forward in supporting those with Parkinson's or any other neurological condition, I think it's choosing to stand up in front of people that you don't know and sharing the gifts that you have, sharing ways to problem solve. And so I'm really proud of this group, and I'm proud of everybody that showed up and took the risk to also be led in this process, because they didn't know what they were in for. They're showing up for a Parkinson's Expo. They trust everybody there. They trust it's going to be a good experience, but they don't really know us. And I don't take that lightly. And I don't think anybody that was leading in that room did either. So such an incredible moment there. A couple more photos to share. I just think it's a beautiful things happening at different levels with people's different abilities, whether they could stand or walk, or they could only sit, or they were wheelchair bound. I just got information that our video footage that we took that day has just become available. So I will be working to edit a video together so I can share with everyone down the road a little bit, so you can see, live what was happening, some of the beautiful exchanges and joy. And I look forward to seeing it too, because, I couldn't be everywhere all at once. So I'm sure there are things happening in pockets of the room that, I couldn't see and couldn't witness. So I think that'll be pretty beautiful. Now, I want to make this really, really simple so that, if you're trying to improve how you play with the BrainSpeed Ball, or you're trying to find ways to explain what you do, or explain to your friends and family why you're playing with the ball, this is just a really simple tool for you to do that. And there's only 3 things that it comes down to. And the first thing is that eye exercise equals better quality of life. And, if we were to sort of like take your hand and cover up eye, you could say exercise equals better quality of life. And we know that, and we've known that for a while. That's not new information. That's not something new to consider. But what is incredible is that the research has shown and been demonstrated in such profound ways that when your eyes are strong and they work together and they have good coordination and range of motion, that our bodies move better, that we think better, we have less overwhelm, we're more regulated, we have just overall a better experience in life. But we don't talk about it very much. We don't talk about it nearly enough. So, I'm here putting my flag on the ground to encourage you to do the same thing, because I've only seen positive things happen. It's incredible to watch someone that, especially in the Parkinson's community, where maybe they've lost hope. They don't know that anything could feel better, or that they could laugh a little bit more. They could have some fun. I mean, just the first time I saw my client with Parkinson's smile was like huge, because he'd been taking it so seriously. All the work was so serious. And then he laughed. I was like, that's where it's at right there. Like, if you can laugh and move your body, it's pretty incredible. And then you find a way, you have a tool now to tap into that on your own on a regular basis. So it's number one. And don't underestimate the power of eye exercise and how that relates to quality of life. It's really profound. And the second thing is that there's unlimited modifications. And, the challenge of there being unlimited modifications can be, well, where do I start? What do I do? I don't know what to do. There's so many ways to play, but where do I start? And so I want to give you a couple really simple things to consider that are baseline in terms of modifications. And the first thing is going to be how much air you have in the ball. So if you have a ball that's really filled up quite a lot, then it's a bouncy ball, right? And then it usually takes 2 hands to catch, unless you have large hands, and you can catch it with one hand. It usually takes 2 hands to catch and play the game. But if you take air out of the ball and you make it so that it's sort of like, a quarter of the air is out, it's really easy to snag with one hand. So as a baseline, when you're looking at modifications, that's one of my go-tos, is like, let's make sure we have the right amount of air for the person we're playing with. Now, what's cool is that putting less air in it, so it's not bouncing, doesn't necessarily mean it's easier, because catching the ball with one hand is its own challenge. So I don't want you to feel like you're not playing the game right, or it's not good enough, or it's not, you're not, keep you out of the headspace of I'm not good enough, or I have to have a bouncy ball, otherwise I'm not really playing right. Right. This is about finding a level that's going to really work for you. And there are plenty of really challenging things to do with a ball that's half inflated. I've had many clients that I've worked with where they only have access to one arm, one hand. And so it's not possible to play with a ball. Their hands aren't big enough to grab a fully inflated ball. So we take some air out. We can throw the ball faster. We can arc the ball really big. We can have 2 balls in one hand and they don't know which one I'm going to throw. There's unlimited ways to explore this. And ultimately, since we know we're looking at eye exercise, we're trying to make sure that the eyes are always tracking. So if the eyes are always tracking, then however you play is going to be beneficial. Now, if you stop looking at the ball and you're not watching it travel through the air, and you're not tracking the letter or number on the ball, then it starts to be a little less effective. However, I've still seen people that have like a 25% success rate of watching the ball still make improvements, because at some element in there, there's some hand-eye coordination that's happening. There's still some challenge that's occurring, even if maybe they're not playing as well as you maybe have seen before, or maybe you had an expectation of how well they should play. I think as movement pros, it can be really easy to fall into a trap of, you know what the game can look like. And so you could have an expectation of what it should look like with somebody that you're playing the game with. So I would just invite you to look at this unlimited modification lens with a way to go, where am I starting? Like, can they catch the ball? Can they catch a fully inflated ball? Can they catch it with one hand? Are they catching it more than they're dropping it? So if you found a place where they're catching it more than they're dropping it, that's a win. Now, I'll also speak to the fact that I want you to drop it once in a while. If you're never dropping the ball, the game isn't hard enough. And so that's an important thing, is that, this isn't about being perfect. This isn't about catching the ball every time, and that makes the game right. What makes the game powerful and successful is that you're tracking with your eyes, that you're watching the ball go away from you and come towards you. You're spotting what you see on the ball, and then you're saying it out loud. So that process of tracking and going through the problem solving of where's the ball, what's on the ball, and saying it out loud, that's where the power is, even if they drop it half the time. I've had many clients where I'm looking to kind of spark some kind of response in their brain. So I'll make the game very hard, and it's pretty hysterical as long as everybody's on board that it's fun. I'll have a pile of balls and I'll throw them as quickly as I can to see how many they can catch in a row. And most of them are bouncing off their chest, off their head. It's soft. It's not really going to hurt you. But the point is, something happens, they get a spark, and then they catch one in a really powerful way, and they feel that capability, and then you can build on it. So don't be afraid to start slow, and talk about starting slow if you're working with somebody else. If it's you playing the game, start really slow. See where the game gets hard for you, and kind of look at expanding and modifying around where that gets hard. Modifying it doesn't have to mean make it easier only. Modifying it could be adding 2 balls, adding 3 balls, having a pile, closing one eye, using only one hand, using your non-dominant hand, bouncing it off a wall, bouncing it off your own hand. It goes on. And later on, I'll give you some specific ideas, but just to know, like, as a rule, there's just unlimited possibilities here. So keeping it challenging and fun. So let's talk about this. Fun first. Make sure that there's fun happening before you make it too challenging for yourself. So if the game isn't fun, the brain gets real bored. But if you keep the game fun, then the brain stays curious, it stays open to learning new things, and you can stay engaged. And if you're playing by yourself, that's really important, because one of the elements that happens when you're playing the game by yourself is that you can pretty much anticipate where the ball is going, because you're the one that threw it. If someone else is throwing the ball, then you have a little bit more challenge in terms of anticipating where the ball is coming from, how fast it's going, et cetera. But you pretty much are going to be able to tell how fast you're throwing the ball, where you're throwing the ball, about when it's going to come back to you, if it's bouncing against the wall, et cetera. So make sure you're playing at a space that's really fun. Now, while being fun, also being challenging. So challenging means that whatever is happening for you, that you drop the ball once in a while. That's the easiest way to know if you've reached a level that's challenging enough. And you'll see in some of the games that I share that in the Game of the Week series that I'm doing, that just released last week, you'll see that every once in a while I'll make a mistake, but really what's happening is that I'm keeping it challenging enough where something happens where I drop the ball, or the ball goes off camera, and I chase it and I bring it back and be like, that's how you play the game. This isn't about like making it perfect and repeating what you see me do, right? And while I've been playing with the BrainSpeed Ball for a long time, and I have a lot of skill built around it, there's a lot of challenge for me to find a game that's going to work best for me, because I have that skill. So I try to demonstrate that and live into that because it's important to keep it challenging. Now, when you're working with somebody with Parkinson's, or if you have Parkinson's yourself, challenging can be a lot of things. Challenging could be the speed at which you're playing. You might be a matter of playing the game at a speed that is really like causes you to challenge your response time. So I don't want you to play a game that's so slow that feels like, yeah, I can do this all the time. Every time I can catch this ball, I'm successful all the time. So I would vary the speed up as a way to low-hanging fruit way to talk about and address the challenging aspect of it. Now, it's easy to see if it's fun. A smile will tell you, a little laugh here or there. For that person who's really competitive, you might see that little spark in their eye where they really start to like focus and get into it. And for that person who's competitive, that's fun for them. And that's me. If that's you'll recognize what that spark looks like. If you're not competitive, don't worry. It's not about being competitive, but that's just a way to recognize if it's fun for the person. It's also nice if you can tap into maybe what they've done in their life. If they played a sport when they were younger, then you can tap into that and mimic some movements from that sport. And so a lot of times, if you can do something that's familiar, a game that feels familiar, you can get a little bit more buy-in, a little bit more fun with it out of the gate. So if they play basketball, do some movements that would mimic basketball, whether that's like a chest pass to the wall or to the ground, or even like shooting it like a basketball against the wall and then catching it and saying what you see. If it's baseball, I played with a baseball player not too long ago, and of course they've got great eyes. They can see tremendously well, and so I really had to trick him basically. So the game was how well can I trick him? So having two balls in the hand, pretending like I'm going to throw both and only throw one. So he really has to find the ball that I'm throwing. Throw one slow, throw one fast. So they both travel, but one drops before it gets to him. So the only one he's going to catch is the one that reaches him, right? So one sort of like nose dives, one actually gets to him. So just always looking for ways to keep it challenging and fun. Now, it might be challenging enough just to have the ball land in your lap. I had some really, really incredible experiences with a client of mine with Parkinson's that sort of like end stage of life. He had very little movement capabilities. There was no speech, but he could trap the ball on his lap. And that was enough to change his mood, to have an effect in his day that was really profound. And so that was a pretty amazing discovery for me to have, because I was at a space with him in his home where, it's an intimate situation, and it can be a little uncomfortable to feel like there's these expectations that you can help this person. And I thought, well, let's just see what we can do and let's see what's possible. And ultimately, I made some incredible discoveries that wouldn't have been possible without, taking that risk and seeing what's possible. Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. So just to recap, your eye exercise equals quality of life. I can't say it enough. And I encourage you to talk to yourself about it, talk to your friends about it, do some research, look some things up that isn't related to the BrainSpeed Ball. There's some cool information, and maybe in the future I can share some articles with you so you can actually read that if you want to read some really powerful yet boring research. Unlimited modifications, and you want to keep it challenging and fun. Like those three things are essential. And I think for me, the key indicator that this was such a good fit for the Parkinson's community is that this became the thing that clients were requesting. They'd walk in and be like, can we play BrainSpeed Ball today? That's the thing that they wanted. They feel a spark, they feel engagement, they feel things improve. So we can, we look at, ways that I might measure, yes, this is good for you. Okay. But when the person who's using the ball says, I want that, that's really good for me, it becomes such a great way to open more doors and possibilities. So again, exercise your eyes. It's a simple answer to a complex problem. Parkinson's is a complex problem, and at the various levels of abilities, whether you're new and you're not having a lot of symptoms, or you're having advanced balance symptoms, or you're losing control of body parts, or you're getting stiffness and you're losing speech, you're losing range of motion, whatever those pieces are for you, this isn't going to cure your disease, but I've only seen those with Parkinson's improve something. And sometimes it's as simple as improving breathing. I got an email a couple of days ago. Someone was asking about, how could this help people with breathing? And when your system is more regulated, your breathing improves. And so just feeling like you have lower stress levels allows for an easier breath. And you don't even realize that you're really working on your breath. Okay, you're doing an eye exercise. That's what you're doing. And then you're like, oh, well, you notice, like, wow, I feel like I'm breathing easier. That's amazing. And then an amazing connection. And ultimately, they say that our eyes are really our brain. Like there is not really separation there. It's like an extension of our brain. And so it makes sense to me to have such powerful responses all over your body by having your eyes exercise. And breathing is something that can become a problem when you're trying to exercise, you're trying to walk to the car, you're trying to walk around your house. And if breathing is a problem, and eye exercises can open that up for you, that's a pretty simple solution. It only takes a few minutes. We're not talking about playing a game for an hour every day. We're talking about, 1 to 5 minutes maybe. And, I love to build a practice around using it when you need it and using it before you need it. So it's like if you're having a stressful day, or you feel like your chest is tight and you can't breathe, or you're feeling a little tighter, you feel like your balance is a little off, maybe you're a little dizzy today, great time to play. Also, you wake up in the morning, you grab the ball, it's a great time to play. So you're just reinforcing a habit and a pattern, but knowing that it's like if you're dehydrated, you drink water. Hopefully you drink water before you're dehydrated, but oftentimes you're dehydrated and you have to drink water. So you're having a little bit of wobbly walk, play the BrainSpeed Ball. Some brain fog, grab the ball. So you can build a habit so you do it beforehand to kind of optimize your day. But if something's happening during your day, you can always grab it to kind of fill in some gaps for yourself. So a couple of really simple game ideas for you. Now, if you're in my Parkinson's program, you'll see these detailed out. But I want to just help you understand when we talk about tracking, that's really about locking on to something on the ball. So like if I'm going to hold the ball in front of me and I lock onto the letter R, a simple game could be just tracking that R as it moves around space, either side to side. It could go up, it could go down, it could go diagonally. And just the process of watching that letter travel around space forces your eyes to work together. So that coordination of the eyes optimizes how well you move your body. It forces your eyes into different ranges of motion. And maybe you didn't even realize that you have a weakness in a certain area. And if you can improve that weakness and you can have your eyes work better together and they have better range of motion, they have better coordination just with simple tracking, that can have a profound effect. And keeping the rules in mind that the game's got to be challenging and fun. So if you go to do a tracking exercise and it's like, this is kind of boring, remember the rule, okay? For some people, holding the ball and tracking it is really hard and fun. I've had many cases where it's like, wow, I can't keep my eyes on the ball. I keep losing it. Wow, this is crazy. This is so hard. Oh my gosh, what's happening? And then they're laughing and they're carrying on because that game was engaging them at that fun and challenging level. So, whatever version you're playing, just remember those rules. So if it's not engaging that fun factor, you want to change it there. We're trying to keep this a game. Like that's the foundation. It's like, how well can you do it? Talk about making it right. Make it a game. If it's a game, you're doing great. Harness that inner 8-year-old like I do. Another game idea is toss and catch. So just, using both hands, just tossing it up and catching it and saying it out loud. So if I was sort of playing full out, it would look and sound like this. J, Q, W, 12. Now I could always make this slower, 8. Take a little bit more time, not throw it quite so fast, 11. Or I could throw it higher so it goes way up before it comes down. Now I have a bigger eye range, I have a bigger head movement, I've got to move and respond quicker. So a simple toss and catch to yourself is a great game. And you can toss and catch to the right, you could toss and catch to the left, you could toss and catch against the wall. Really simple. Now, just making sure that when you're looking at the ball, that you're doing your best to see a letter or number. But if that's too hard, that's okay. Just it's orange. You can't miss the orange. Just keep your eyes focused on the orange. All right. And just tracking the ball by itself can be really beneficial. So finding a letter or number is too hard. Just down level it to tracking the ball itself. Now, breathing is really important for those people with Parkinson's. And while playing the game itself can help with breathing and help to open up airways and feel like your chest is more relaxed to get better breathing, I like to build it into a game. And so I'll just pick the toss and catch and then add the breathing for you. So you just toss, catch, say what it is, and I'm going to add a breath. So it would look and sound like this. K. H. One. So something like that. I mean, that was 3 times, and I already feel more regulated myself, just as a share for you. You know, for me, my chest is always really tight anyway. But if you are someone with Parkinson's and you're experiencing a limited range of motion, your thoracic is really tightening up and your rib cage is locked up and you can't get a breath, even if it's a short breath, doing the toss and catch and adding the breathing can be beneficial, because you can look at maybe the next one, you can get a little longer breath, a little deeper breath, take a little bit more time. And so start off with, maybe not having the expectation that you have to take a deep breath. It doesn't have to be a deep breath. It's just a breath. Whatever an inhale and exhale feels like for you, that's what it is. And as you get better at it and it starts to feel like, this is kind of easy, well, then maybe take a 2-second inhale and a 2-second exhale, or take a 3-second inhale and a 5-second exhale, right? Or you could throw in some box breathing if you want to get really tricky, where you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold it for 4, right? Sort of that box breathing. But also just, it could be as simple as an inhale and an exhale. Remember, I'm showing you with a fully inflated ball, but you could always play all of these games with one hand using the ball that's deflated. Speeding up and slowing down. I like this version a lot because even if you're playing by yourself, now you're in charge of making sure the game is changing while you're playing it. So that can be a fun thing. So this is one I like to play against the wall. So you're bouncing in against the wall and catching it, saying it out loud like you normally would. But you start off slow. It's a slow toss, a slow catch, and it gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, hopefully, until you drop it. If you don't drop it, then you maybe want to back up. Maybe you want to throw a little bit higher. Maybe you want to throw a little bit differently. But hopefully you can find a speed that gets too fast for your ability to track the ball and catch it and play the game. And then once you've done that, then you start fast and you work your way slower and slower and slower. And how slow can you play? And being in charge of that yourself can add that extra element of surprise, because you're having to make sure the game is changing while you're playing it. And it's a little harder to anticipate what's happening with the ball as it gets really, really fast, because it requires some fast processing to track with it. So I mentioned Game of the Week earlier, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows about this. So last week I launched Game of the Week, and from here on out, every week I'm going to release a new game, a new way to play, and give you some ways to make it easier, make it harder. And these aren't necessarily Parkinson's specific, but like if I pulled the curtain back, every game you can play for Parkinson's, right? Like there aren't like the 5 games for Parkinson's. I do pick my favorites for the program, and I do share my favorites, but the reality is that people with Parkinson's are at all levels. And so this is a chance to see what game can work for you. And so that's the YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll get notification of the new game. If you're already on the list and you get emails from me, then I send out an email every week letting you know that a new game has been posted, and you can just follow the link that way and watch it that way as well. So if you're not somebody that subscribes to YouTube, you can always just wait for my email. I'll make sure you get it. Okay, so I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A and make sure that you know that you're not alone. I say that a lot and I mean it, because it's one thing to have the ball, and it's one thing to meet me or to meet some of the leaders and to have an experience, but like then you're by yourself. Well, you're not by yourself. So I do these just about every month, and I get people to ask me a lot of questions on social media and by email. And so this is a chance for you to really know that you're not alone. So if you're on the call live today, this is a chance to ask questions and to feel like you have the support that you need and kind of filling in some gaps for yourself. One of the questions that's already come in was somebody got the ball recently. And let me just say, this doesn't have to be Parkinson's specific questions. If you're here for Parkinson's, that's awesome. I'm here for it. If you have other needs, or you have a different condition, or you're playing for different reasons, it's also something that's going to be open for you. Okay, so the question that came in was, we got a ball recently. Can we play more than 5 minutes per day? It's for a 7-year-old. Yeah, you certainly can play for more than 5 minutes. It's just that I don't want you to feel like you have to get the results. If it's fun for more than 5 minutes, for sure. If you feel like, well, if 5 is good, 20 is better, and it's not fun anymore, then not so much. I used to sneak this game in with my kids, and we would play for like 20, 25 minutes. And I invented a game called Stair Ball. And so I would sit them at the top of the stairs, and I sat at the bottom of the stairs. And then I would throw the ball. And because there's no pictures in the wall, it could bounce off the wall, bounce off the stairs, and they had to be able to snag it in the process. And then they'd throw it back down to me, and I would play. And we would play for forever because the game itself was fun. And I could just sneak in some tracking. And it was stair ball. We didn't play BrainSpeed Ball. We didn't play this brain game. It's like we played stair ball. And certainly, but if it's not fun, then don't play that long. Some of the most incredible responses I've seen have been in less than 5 minutes. I mean, I had a gentleman that I worked with that had a stroke. He only had use of one arm. He was 5 years post stroke, and pretty much had plateaued. Like all the therapies he was doing, everything he was doing, he was just like the same. And he's like, well, I really can't catch with that hand. I'm like, well, but what if you can? Like, what if we tried? And I threw ball after ball after ball after ball. And finally, he snagged one. And you could see the electricity go off in his head. And he's like, I just did that. And I'm like, yeah, you just did that. So then we can continue to play. And then he walked. He's like, I'm walking better than I had for 5 years. It's like, that's amazing. And I'm just willing to take the risk. I didn't know, like, well, I know what to do. We're going to play this many times, and this is what's going to happen. It's more like, let's see what can happen. Let's see what door we can open. But it had to stay fun the whole time. I had to keep him curious and engaged and involved the whole time. So certainly more than 5 minutes. It's awesome. Now, another question that came in actually had to do with breathing. And it's a great question because the question was around the idea of like when they're doing regular exercise, fill in the blank, could be Pilates, could be training, could be whatever, that breathing is challenging. And so what I would say to you, that if you find that you're doing an activity, fill in the blank, could be exercise, could be any activity, and breathing is a problem, that you're trying to talk to the wrong system. If breathing is a problem, then let's talk to a different system. And I'm going to go to the eyes. I'm going to go to the eyes because the brain listens to the eyes first. We take in the most information from our surroundings through the eyes. Our brains do so much more from the information than any other system in our body. So if I feel like I'm barking up the wrong tree, let's see what happens if I involve the eyes. And so for if you're working with a client or you're working on your own and you're like doing exercise, or you're on the bike or you're doing Pilates, whatever it is, and like your breathing is off, instead of trying to do better breathing, I'm like, I got to breathe better. My breathing is not good. I got to breathe better. Instead of that, go to a higher order system, go to your eyes and play a game that involves your eyes, and then measure to see if your breathing got better. I'll bet you it does. As long as you're tracking a little bit, as long as the game's a little bit challenging and it's fun, I'll bet you that it does. Oftentimes our response and our limitations that show up aren't because of a lack of that thing. They're because of something else is off, something else is weak. There's a gap somewhere else. I discovered when I was working with my daughter that, when she was young, we were at T-ball practice, and she hit the ball, and then she went to run to first base. And I was like, that's not running. What is she doing? This is amazing. My daughter, who's 7, can't run. Wow. Okay. I didn't know this about her. And she's 7. What's happening? I feel like I was in a different reality. And so I did eye exercises with her, and she could run in a matter of a couple of days. It was like her eyes were just so weak that running was not possible. And she didn't have the coordination neurologically to make it happen. And then I realized years later that when she was reading, she would lay on her side and cover her weak eye and just read with one eye. And that's how she learned how to read. And she was very skilled at it. For me, that just puts me to sleep. But for her, she had built a lot of skill around that. So actually, she had been practicing not using both eyes. She had the opposite practice. It was like, okay, so can we get you to practice using both eyes at the same time? So when I introduced tracking, it was profound because she hadn't been using both eyes. She'd been using one eye her whole life. I didn't know until later in her life, but it was something that was huge. So pretty incredible. So if you're on the call today and you want to ask some questions, now is a great time. If you want to raise your hand, either physically or if you have the little hand raiser inside Zoom. And if anybody has a success story to share, that's another reason to unmute and share with the community, because I'll tell you, like, hearing stories about, you know, what became possible or what has opened up can be life-changing for someone who's wondering if it's going to be helpful for them. Okay, I've got a question. Is it Cihan? Do I say that right?
Yeah, Jihan. Hi,
Yeah.
thank you, Trent. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes.
I've learned about you, from Tara Hankins' podcast, and I've tried. It's recent, but already I can see differences. Like recent, I mean, it's been 2-3 weeks, but
Awesome.
already I see differences. With my daughter, she has ASD, and with the eye, we have eye exercises she couldn't do at all before, and since we're playing with the ball, she's getting better with the eye exercises.
Yeah.
It's much. Sorry?
I was saying, what kind of eye exercises was she given?
Brain balance. We do brain balance.
Yeah.
For primitive reflexes.
Yeah.
And so both this ball and primitive reflexes, the eye exercise, they go well together. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Another question. I have also a stepson. He's different, but we believe he has some issues also, like kind of ASD.
Okay.
So I got 2 balls, one for my daughter who's 7, who's diagnosed, and one for my stepson, he's 17, but he's not diagnosed. So we didn't tell him anything because he likes to play with the ball all the time. There is a ball in his hand. He's just kind of,
Yeah.
So I gave him without saying anything, and he's doing it. Do you think it will still work or not?
Yes.
Like he doesn't say I see A, I see B, or whatever.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I'll tell you, I got a call from a mom in Chicago. This is one of my favorite stories because this was very early on for me. And she called me and she's like, listen, I got this BrainSpeed Ball for me. And I set it on the counter, and my daughter, who's 13, just grabbed it and started playing with it and making up her own games, was given no instruction. And she said, Trent, like, the struggle in our household around homework with her is profound. Like it's disruptive, it's painful. And I've had that. I understand what that is. And she's like, first time in her life she can sit and do her homework. And she made up her own game. And I'm like, that's amazing. So
excellent.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too focused on him playing the right game. You know, if he's watching the ball, he's tracking. Even if he's not recalling what he's seeing, he's still doing tracking.
Yeah.
And for a 17-year-old, you might have him like catch you playing the game or catch someone else playing the game, but then don't talk to him about it. Don't say, oh, you should play like this too. Just have him hear it. So it just registers like, oh, that's a possibility, you know, and then let that kind of process for him and see where he goes with that.
Totally right advice. Anyway, if we say anything, he will leave it. He will do the opposite. Teenager.
Yeah. Don't give him
if he knows what the ball is, he will not play with it.
Yeah.
Normally, he was taking his sister's balls, like ordinary balls, and so that's why I said I got 2 for both of you. He was like, oh, okay. Yeah, but he wouldn't do if I tell him to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially from mom, right? And
Yeah,
if
yeah, I know.
it's a stepmom, right?
Well, it doesn't matter from his dad, also is my
Yeah,
husband, or from his mom.
yeah,
It wouldn't do like his teenager. He wouldn't do.
totally. 17-year-old boy, I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But he's enjoying it. He's playing with it all day.
And that's the thing. It's like and I would say like I wouldn't ask him what he notices is different because that's going to shut him down. Like he's going to want to
Mm,
not do that. But pay attention to what you notice. Pay attention like if mood is more regulated, if that's something
yeah,
that changes, or if he's sleeping better, or if he wakes up easier,
yeah.
if he gets
Well,
things done faster.
yeah.
Just look at different things.
Well, we'll see. We are in London, and he was here for summer holiday, but he went back to his mom in France. So we'll see how it is. By the way, we are in England.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's great. Yeah, don't give him instructions. Just let
yeah.
him lead it. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Barb, hi there.
There.
What's your question?
I don't have a question. You wanted a testimonial.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
give you one.
All right.
My daughter is Allie Werner, as Trent knows, and I was at the Expo helping, and I did manage to get into the BrainSpeed Ball portion of the classes for half of it. And I can't tell you how impressed I was and how I've passed this on. My husband's cousin's wife has Parkinson's, and she now has a ball, and all the directions I can send her. It really is quite a program. And about 5 days, maybe after the expo, I had my eye appointment, and I presented this to my eye doctor. And Trent had said that it was more intense with a smaller ball. And the PT person at the eye office had a pretty small ball on a string that just, went back and forth, and talk about dizzy. But it was interesting because it was colored, but it was red and green for color blindness.
Right.
But she was also using it with children. And she was really impressed with the bigger ball, and she was going to order a couple so that when she worked with children, they'd have that bigger ball that you gave all of us. I'm using mine just for balance. I'm almost 80, so balance is is becoming an issue. But I can't say enough about your program.
Oh, that's so great, Barb. I've got to tell everybody, by the way, Barb is the person who urged my first client with Parkinson's to become a client. So that story that I told earlier, Barb is a good friend of this gentleman, and that's the reason why he was able to start to trust me and what we were doing. And so yeah, I knew he belonged, and he sure did. So he was a client for almost 20 years. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, he's amazing. And the other thing, Barb, is that ball is called a Marsden ball, and that ball is something that a lot of my younger clients are given in their vision therapy, and they all hate it because it's boring, it's too hard, and it's the opposite. Like if we want challenging and fun, this is boring and miserable, and too hard. And it's really repetitive. It's like the same over and over and over again. And certainly in some applications, it can be really effective and really useful. There's a reason why it is, and therapists and vision therapists use it. But I was like, yeah, we gotta cut the string. This has got to be something that we throw around. It's got to bounce. You got to be able to lose it and have to go fetch it and all of those things. So I'm so glad you mentioned that ball, because that was some of the reasons. Is like, yeah, we got to cut that string. And like, certainly I'm not the first person to put letters and numbers on a ball, but I cut that string real quick. Let's make this something.
She had me try it, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And she had a small therapy room. She'd have to be out in the hall bouncing a ball with a child, but I'm sure she could make that accommodation. But it was difficult.
Yeah.
Being on the string.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Oh, thank you, Barb, for being here. Beautiful. All right, before we wrap up, any other stories or questions? Kristen, how about you? If I can call on you to even maybe speak about your experience at the Parkinson's event, because Kristen is a graduate of the Neuro Leader Program, and she happened to be the person that really ended up leading and becoming the voice of the event. So if you just wanted, if I can put you on the spot to say a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. Really just backing on what you already said, to be able to bring work to any group who the group is going to have varying abilities. And from doing the coursework over the year, that I felt I was able to go in there and feel really confident and competent about what I was showing up with, so that I knew where I could up level, where I could down level with anything that I was offering to somebody, is not something that always happens. Having had a background in fitness and working there for over 20 years, that I remember so many times teaching classes and seeing someone who's like, oh gosh, I want to try to level to that person. But then you have the high intensity people who feel like they're not being met. And it is so easy, it is so accessible with the ball to be able to meet the needs and help anybody find where that edge of challenge is, and how stinking fun it is, and welcoming that aspect that comes in really naturally without feeling like, oh gosh, I failed at this. That there's the inherent nature of play that comes along with the ball, that, as you already commented, just seeing people smile doing it, and that there's a way for people to do it on their own, but to be able to see the opportunity for care providers to be able to easily engage with their loved one and have that reciprocal relationship where really they were both benefiting from it. But again, to have something where anybody can engage. So whether it's Parkinson's or just wanting to play with a grandchild or with a friend for that matter, it's been an incredible body of work. I'll share in sort of testimonial covering age spans as well. I have a 6-year-old child, and she was experiencing some car sickness, some dizziness, and just feeling off sorts. And so we utilized some of the BrainSpeed exercises, and we did several trips this summer, and she had no issues with it. And then I just saw this week someone who I had worked with back in the spring using BrainSpeed exercises. And she told me, so this woman is in her 60s, and she was taking a couple of road trips and having some issues with car sickness. And she had a long car trip coming up, and it just clicked in her brain. She remembered what I had told her about my daughter. She tried doing some tracking while she was actually in the car. She was already on her trip, and she said she was able to take this long road trip without having any car sickness.
Amazing.
So the ability to cover needs of varying needs of all ages is such a gift.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And it can be so hard to have your own child suffering from something and not know how to help. And even there's many times where we're taking our kids, and I'm sure you can relate, to every person we can think of to help them with whatever they need help with, and then still there's not a solution. And then you play a game and you're like, that's all they needed? That's amazing. It's like sometimes we're working so hard to find a solution that, like, playing for a few minutes. Car sickness is really hard. I mean, that's something that I struggled with for a long time. I couldn't sit in the back seat and turn my head sideways. I'd be done for the rest of the trip. And, I didn't know at the time when I was a kid, especially, that it was because of my eyes. So it's such a gift for your daughter to have this information now too. So if something were to happen in the future where that becomes back, she knows how to address it.
Yeah, the independence and like the empowerment that she has with it too, to understand that she can do things for her body that can support what she needs. And to think about the number of things, as you were mentioning, that car sickness, vertigo, tinnitus. We can have so many different things that come up that I've sort of been led to believe that it's either related to aging, or if it just comes up, this is what you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But there's this opportunity with eye exercises, with the vestibular component as well, that you can just give it a try. And not saying that it's going to be a fix, like you were describing for Parkinson's in the beginning, that this isn't meant to be a fix or a cure-all, but there's definitely a possibility in it, and a possibility that something could be better than what it was.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome.